Black belt picks black janitor to spar, just for fun, regrets it on the very first hit. Sensei Marcus Whitfield spots the perfect target for his evening's entertainment. Samuel, the quiet janitor who cleans his upscale dojo while wealthy students practice choreographed techniques they'll never use in real conflict. The arrogant black belt expects to provide his paying customers with a brief demonstration of martial arts superiority over civilian inadequacy, choosing someone whose age and occupation suggest easy victory for promotional purposes. What Whitfield doesn't realize is that some of the most dangerous opponents are the ones who never advertise their capabilities, cleaning floors while carrying knowledge that expensive certificates can't teach. Tonight, assumptions about who possesses authentic fighting skills are about to be shattered with a single devastating strike. Sensei Marcus Whitfield adjusts his pristine black belt with the self-satisfied smugness of someone who's never encountered a challenge that couldn't be overcome through technique polished in climate-controlled studios rather than tested in real-world adversity. At 35, the third-degree black belt has built his reputation on dominating students who pay premium prices for martial arts instruction at his upscale academy, where wealthy suburbanites learn choreographed movements that look impressive in demonstrations but have never been tested against opponents who fight for survival rather than trophies. His dojo represents everything sanitized about modern martial arts: expensive equipment, motivational posters about honor and discipline, and students whose biggest challenges involve choosing between BMW and Mercedes rather than finding their next meal. Tonight's advanced class includes doctors, lawyers, and tech executives who view martial arts as stress relief rather than life skills, their monthly fees subsidizing Whitfield's lifestyle, while their limited dedication provides him with easy victories that reinforce his inflated sense of superiority. The evening's training session focuses on sparring techniques that emphasize control and form over practical application, with Whitfield demonstrating combinations against compliant partners who've been conditioned to make him look skilled rather than challenged to improve their own abilities. His teaching philosophy prioritizes looking good over being effective, creating an environment where students learn to perform martial arts rather than apply them, where respect is demanded through authority rather than earned through genuine expertise. The dojo's mirrors reflect movements that appear impressive but lack the practical edge that comes from training against opponents who won't cooperate with choreographed demonstrations, while motivational quotes about warrior spirit ring hollow in an environment that's never produced anyone capable of handling real conflict or genuine physical challenges. 52-year-old Samuel Washington enters the dojo quietly, his janitorial uniform marking him as invisible to the wealthy students who barely acknowledge his presence, while he maintains the facility that enables their comfortable pursuit of martial arts as recreational activity. Samuel's contract includes evening cleaning duties that coincide with advanced classes, his efficient work allowing him to observe training sessions while remaining professionally unobtrusive and personally unnoticed by people whose economic status makes them assume he has nothing valuable to contribute to their expensive educational experience. What none of these martial arts enthusiasts realize is that Samuel's understanding of combat extends far beyond anything taught in their sanitized environment. His military service in special operations included hand-to-hand combat training that emphasized effectiveness over elegance, survival over style, results over recognition. Whitfield notices Samuel's presence with a condescending awareness that wealthy people develop towards service workers, acknowledging their existence while assuming their irrelevance to any conversation or activity that might matter to people of status and education. Tonight, however, Whitfield's ego requires more stimulation than his usual compliant students can provide, his need for validation seeking new sources of easy victory that will reinforce his self-image as a martial arts master rather than an expensive instructor. Samuel's age, occupation, and obvious lack of formal martial arts training make him appear perfect for the kind of demonstration that will entertain Whitfield's paying customers while providing him with an effortless victory over someone who clearly lacks the resources, training, and social status that define legitimate martial arts practitioners in environments like this upscale academy. Whitfield approaches Samuel with the calculated casualness of someone who's identified the perfect target for public humiliation disguised as friendly invitation, his voice carrying false warmth that barely masks contempt as he suggests that the janitor might enjoy experiencing real martial arts training rather than just observing from the sidelines. His proposal is framed as generosity, offering someone who could never afford proper instruction the opportunity to learn from a legitimate black belt, providing entertainment for paying students while demonstrating the vast gulf between trained martial artists and untrained civilians. Samuel's initial polite refusal only encourages Whitfield's manipulation, as the sensei recognizes that pressure must be applied carefully to transform reluctance into participation without creating obvious coercion that might make his students uncomfortable with the spectacle they're about to witness. The advanced students watch this interaction with the mixture of curiosity and superiority that characterizes people who've paid premium prices for the privilege of feeling elite, their expensive uniforms and colored belts creating artificial hierarchies that separate them from ordinary people like the janitor who maintains their training facility. Whitfield's manipulation of Samuel demonstrates the psychological warfare that bullies perfect when they have status, audience, and assumed superiority on their side, questioning Samuel's willingness to try new things, suggesting that real men don't back down from friendly challenges, implying that his refusal reflects fear rather than appropriate caution about entering situations designed to make him look foolish for the entertainment of people who view him as beneath their social consideration. Samuel's decision to accept Whitfield's challenge comes not from ego or competitive spirit, but from the kind of quiet confidence that develops in people who've faced genuine danger and survived through competence rather than bluster, whose understanding of violence has been earned through situations where failure meant death rather than embarrassment. His agreement carries none of the enthusiasm that Whitfield expected, instead reflecting the calm acceptance of someone who recognizes that some lessons can only be taught through demonstration rather than explanation. The janitor who changes into borrowed sparring gear moves with efficiency that suggests comfort with physical preparation, while his demeanor remains professionally respectful despite the obvious setup that's designed to provide entertainment at his expense. As Samuel prepares for what Whitfield assumes will be a brief demonstration of martial arts superiority over civilian inadequacy, the sensei explains the rules of engagement with condescending patience that emphasizes his expertise while underscoring Samuel's assumed ignorance about proper fighting techniques and safety protocols. The advanced students gather around the sparring area with anticipation that reflects their expectations of witnessing their instructor's dominance over someone who clearly lacks the training, conditioning, and technical knowledge that martial arts mastery requires. Whitfield's confidence reaches its peak as he faces an opponent who appears to offer no threat to his reputation or his students' respect. His assumption about easy victory, based on surface observations that completely miss the deeper indicators of genuine combat experience that expensive dojos can't teach and recreational martial arts can't replicate. The moment Samuel assumes his fighting stance, everything changes in ways that Whitfield's limited experience with compliant training partners couldn't prepare him to recognize or handle effectively. Samuel's positioning reflects decades of training that prioritized practical application over aesthetic appeal, his balance and awareness suggesting preparation for violence that extends far beyond the choreographed exchanges that define recreational martial arts instruction. Whitfield notices immediately that Samuel moves with efficiency rather than flash, that his stance emphasizes function over form, that his eyes track movement with intensity that suggests experience with opponents who pose genuine threats rather than cooperative training partners willing to make instructors look competent. Whitfield's opening combination follows the predictable patterns that work effectively against students who've been conditioned to respond in specific ways, his techniques demonstrating muscle memory developed through repetition against compliant opponents rather than adaptation to unpredictable challenges. But Samuel's response reveals immediately that Whitfield has made a catastrophic error in judgment. The janitor's defensive movements neutralize the attack with minimal effort, while his counterstrike lands with precision and power that staggers the sensei, both physically and psychologically. The single exchange lasts less than 3 seconds, but completely reverses the expected dynamic, with Samuel demonstrating superiority that makes Whitfield's reputation seem based on illusion rather than reality. The advanced students watch in stunned silence as their instructor, the black belt they've paid thousands to learn from, stumbles backward from a janitor's casual counterpunch, their understanding of martial arts hierarchy collapsing as they witness genuine skill dismantling pretension with surgical efficiency. Samuel's follow-up movements flow with the kind of natural fluidity that can't be learned in weekend seminars or belt testing ceremonies. His combinations demonstrating training that emphasized effectiveness over elegance, results over recognition. Whitfield's attempts to recover control of the encounter only expose further gaps between his recreational expertise and Samuel's practical knowledge, each exchange revealing new layers of inadequacy that shatter his carefully constructed image of martial arts mastery. As the sparring continues, Samuel's dominance becomes increasingly obvious to everyone present, his techniques demonstrating principles that Whitfield teaches but has never truly understood: timing, distance, leverage, and the psychological composure that allows real fighters to perform under pressure rather than crumbling when faced with authentic resistance. The janitor who was supposed to provide easy victory instead delivers a masterclass in practical combat application, his movements teaching lessons that expensive instruction couldn't convey about the difference between martial arts as performance and martial arts as survival skill. Whitfield finds himself not just outmatched, but outclassed by someone whose qualifications exist in his hands and reflexes rather than on certificates hanging in expensive frames, whose understanding of violence comes from necessity rather than recreation. Within minutes of what was supposed to be a brief demonstration of black belt superiority over civilian inadequacy, Whitfield finds himself completely overwhelmed by Samuel's systematic dismantling of every technique and strategy that has defined his teaching career and personal identity. Samuel's control of distance and timing makes Whitfield's attacks seem clumsy and predictable, while his precise counterstrikes land with authority that demonstrates power held carefully in check rather than unleashed at full capacity. The janitor who was expected to provide entertainment instead delivers education that exposes fundamental flaws in how modern martial arts instruction prioritizes appearance over substance, tradition over effectiveness, hierarchy over genuine skill development. The advanced students witness their expensive education being deconstructed in real time as Samuel demonstrates principles that their instructor taught, but clearly didn't understand. How real combat flows differently from choreographed demonstrations, how authentic technique emerges from practical necessity rather than theoretical knowledge, how genuine martial arts mastery reveals itself through effortless application rather than dramatic presentation. Their monthly fees suddenly seem like payments for access to illusion rather than education, while their colored belts begin feeling like participation trophies rather than indicators of legitimate achievement. Samuel's performance forces them to confront uncomfortable questions about the value of their training and the authenticity of their instructor's credentials. Whitfield's desperation leads him to abandon the controlled sparring format in favor of increasingly aggressive attacks that cross boundaries between training and assault, his ego unable to accept defeat at the hands of someone whose social status should have guaranteed easy victory for a legitimate black belt. But Samuel's response to escalated aggression reveals military training that emphasized neutralizing threats efficiently rather than prolonging encounters for educational or entertainment purposes, his techniques flowing seamlessly from defensive countermeasures to complete dominance that leaves Whitfield on the ground questioning everything he believed about his own abilities and the legitimacy of his martial arts credentials. As the encounter ends with Whitfield thoroughly defeated and Samuel barely breathing hard, the dojo falls silent except for the sound of assumed superiority crashing into authentic expertise with results that nobody anticipated but everyone can clearly witness. The janitor who was supposed to be humiliated instead stands composed and respectful, while the sensei struggles to process defeat at the hands of someone he assumed was beneath consideration as a legitimate opponent. Samuel's demonstration has exposed the gap between recreational martial arts and practical combat training, between theoretical knowledge and applied skill, between assumed authority and earned respect. Samuel helps Whitfield to his feet with the same professional courtesy he brings to his janitorial duties, his demeanor remaining respectful despite having just dismantled the martial arts instructor's reputation along with his techniques. The janitor's post-sparring behavior demonstrates genuine martial arts philosophy, respect for opponents, humility in victory, and understanding that real strength requires compassion rather than cruelty when dealing with those who've been humbled by superior skill. His quiet departure to resume cleaning duties leaves the advanced students and their instructor to process what they've witnessed, a complete reversal of expectations that challenges everything they believed about martial arts mastery, social hierarchy, and the relationship between appearances and reality. Whitfield's reputation never recovers from the public demonstration of his inadequacy against an opponent he assumed would provide easy victory, his students gradually departing as word spreads about the janitor who exposed their expensive instructor's limitations through effortless superiority. The incident forces broader conversations within the martial arts community about the difference between commercial instruction and practical training, between belt ranking systems and genuine competence, between teaching martial arts as recreation and developing authentic combat skills that serve real-world applications. Whitfield's downfall becomes a cautionary tale about the consequences of mistaking certificates for capability, while Samuel's performance inspires respect for veterans whose skills were earned through necessity rather than purchased through monthly fees. The broader implications of Samuel's victory extend through discussions about how society values different types of knowledge and experience, recognizing that expertise often exists in people whose economic circumstances or professional roles make their capabilities invisible to those who assume superiority based on surface indicators rather than demonstrated competence. Samuel's story becomes an example of how authentic mastery reveals itself through humble application rather than dramatic presentation, while his continued work as a janitor demonstrates that true strength doesn't require recognition or validation from others to maintain its reality and effectiveness. Years later, Samuel continues his janitorial duties with the same quiet efficiency that defined his approach to martial arts demonstration, his brief moment of visibility fading into memory, while his genuine character remains consistent regardless of whether anyone is watching or recognizing his capabilities. The encounter that destroyed Whitfield's carefully constructed image becomes a teaching moment about the importance of respecting everyone regardless of their apparent station in life, while Samuel's example proves that authentic expertise doesn't require titles, certificates, or expensive uniforms to maintain its value and effectiveness in situations that demand real skill rather than recreational performance. 5 years after the incident that destroyed Marcus Whitfield's reputation as a martial arts instructor, Samuel Washington continues his work as a janitor while occasionally providing discreet training to young people who seek authentic combat education rather than recreational martial arts entertainment. His approach to teaching emphasizes practical application over theoretical knowledge, character development over technical flash, and the understanding that real martial arts serve to protect rather than dominate others. The students who find their way to Samuel's informal instruction learn about discipline, respect, and effectiveness through methods that prioritize substance over style, creating competent practitioners rather than certificate collectors. Whitfield's former dojo closed within 2 years of his public humiliation, his advanced students seeking instruction from teachers whose credentials were based on demonstrated ability rather than assumed authority, while his reputation in martial arts circles became synonymous with the danger of mistaking appearance for reality. The incident became a widely discussed example of how modern martial arts instruction can create illusions of competence that collapse when confronted with authentic expertise, inspiring reforms in training methodologies and ranking systems that emphasize practical application over theoretical knowledge. Samuel's story spreads through military and law enforcement communities as an example of how real combat skills translate into civilian environments, while his humble response to victory demonstrates the character that authentic martial arts training should develop in practitioners who understand that true strength serves others rather than the ego. His continued work as a janitor, while possessing extraordinary fighting abilities, becomes a symbol of how genuine mastery doesn't require recognition or status to maintain its value. That competence exists independently of social acknowledgement or professional validation. The encounter between Samuel and Whitfield continues, serving as a teaching moment about the importance of respecting everyone regardless of their apparent position in social or economic hierarchies, while demonstrating that authentic expertise often exists in people whose circumstances make their capabilities invisible to those who judge others based on surface indicators rather than character and demonstrated ability. Samuel's example proves that true martial arts mastery reveals itself through service, humility, and the willingness to use strength only when necessary to protect rather than to dominate or humiliate others who pose no genuine threat. True martial arts mastery reveals itself through character and competence, not certificates and social status. Samuel's effortless victory proved that authentic strength serves others while false expertise serves only ego. Hit subscribe for more incredible stories showing that real warriors often hide in plain sight. What would you discover about yourself if forced to confront someone whose quiet competence exposes your loud assumptions?